herb knife to get on this herb mic. You know I'm alert, right? You know that it ain't nothing to serve, right? And I be killing tracks to the...
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to be talking about Monday Night Raw, the season premiere of Monday Night Raw from October the 10th, 10/10/2022. All right, so the first news and note, well, there's really only one to discuss, really. Jimmy Smith went on his radio show, his podcast, stirred up a little controversy by talking about what WWE really is about, which is the look. And, you know, some people ragging on Daniel Cormier because he was out of shape, and the idea that Daniel Cormier was going to wrestle Brock Lesnar. Wrestling media, of course, took it and ran with it. I didn't follow it too closely, but I know that Jimmy Smith put out a bunch of videos talking about it and trying to, quote unquote, explain himself. But it really boils down to Jimmy Smith said that Roman Reigns can't fight, and that WWE is more about the look, not about it. So basically, it's not real. That's what it boils down to, is wrestling isn't real. And they're not bringing in Daniel Cormier because he doesn't look like he can fight or something like that. Never has a guy gone, damn, it's kind of screwed up what happened to him, you know, to, well, glad he got fired. Like, how quickly is the turnaround on Jimmy Smith? He was a mediocre voice for WWE. He wasn't that bad, but he wasn't that great either. Nobody's going to miss him. Kevin Patrick was not good on this show, if you're being honest. I didn't care for him. But we're in a position now where, you know, a lot of wrestling fans and a lot of wrestling media basically just attacked the guy and crapped all over him. And he went about trying to explain himself and really didn't do that good of a job of it. But I mean, I don't know what more to say. You know, I mean, wrestling is not real, but it is about people who look the part. So he's not entirely wrong, but I don't think he's seen Roman Reigns in a fight. So I don't know if he can say definitively that Roman Reigns can't fight, which is an odd thing that people say about wrestlers all the time, is that apparently wrestlers don't know how to fight. They can't defend themselves, yada, yada, yada. I do think that the old days, let's give me a chance to riff on the old days a little bit, where wrestlers were expected to have some kind of amateur background. I think this is where that sort of mentality actually legitimized the business a lot more. Because now you got guys like Seth Rollins talking about he has no jiu-jitsu training at all, which basically invites people to attack him in the street and all that kind of stuff. And they've become mostly actors. You know, looking the part, playing the part, and all that kind of stuff, which is, you know, fine, because I accept that's how the business is. But that's not how the business always used to be. It used to be, okay, I can legitimately stretch somebody if they were to attack me. I could probably legitimately stretch somebody with some skill. But, you know, we agreed to lose to each other, to put each other over, to help business. You know, because that's what business, we could sit here and grapple with each other for 4.5 hours, sometimes 6 or 7 hours, because that's what they used to do. Because, you know, hey, there were no rounds or anything like that. So you just get in there and whatever happens, happens. And sometimes it would be very boring. Guys would be, you know, would just hold forever. And, you know, UFC went through that too, where the ground game. And they would eventually have a stand-up rule. Boxing goes through that too with the clinch, you know, that sort of stuff. And to make it more entertaining, they do things like break up the clinch. They do things like have a stand-up rule. Wrestling did it to the extreme by saying guys would agree to lose in a certain amount of time to make the other guy look good, you know. And wrestlers going from having a legitimate background in some type of combat sport to now just basically being people who hopped off their couch and, you know, took a gymnastics class or something like that, has definitely damaged the perception of the business. And now people feel comfortable just saying Roman Reigns can't fight, or, you know, so-and-so can't fight. It's like, okay, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I never got into a fight with Roman Reigns. I ain't never seen somebody fight Roman Reigns. But he's not entirely wrong in so much that WWE is more about the look than anything else. So But it was just funny how the turnaround happened, that so many people were kind of like, oh no, Jimmy Smith, he wasn't that bad. Come on, man. Cut us some slack, Papa H. Till all of a sudden, Jimmy Smith is the devil. I'm glad Jimmy Smith got fired. Fuck Jimmy Smith. I was just like, wow, that was quick. And it wasn't just WWE fans attacking him too, even though it was mostly WWE fans attacking him. It wasn't only WWE fans, which surprised me. There was a lot of AEW fans too. Because if you say, bad stuff about Roman Reigns, what do you think he's talking about when it comes to like their favorites? Because it's the same crap that Bobby Fish has been saying about CM Punk. CM Punk can't fight. It's like, you're in the wrong business. And this is part of the issue when it comes to this WWE MMA crossover stuff, is that a lot of wrestling fans don't understand what they're looking at. And I think this was another one of those things when it comes to like the Liv Morgan, Ronda Rousey finish. Like, a lot of wrestling fans didn't know what they were looking at, but there were MMA fighters and people who, like Shayna Baszler, who did know what they were looking at. And it went over the heads of the wrestling fans. They're like, I don't know what this is. What is she doing? And, it just looked like she's sitting on Liv Morgan's head. But, it was a legitimate submission hold. And that sort of stuff does indeed go over the head of wrestling fans, while MMA fans kind of get it. But it's supposed to be one of those things where it's a wrestling show for wrestling fans. And you could say, well, wrestling fans need to be a little bit more aware of what submission holds and stuff like that look like, and I don't disagree. But at the same time, they're not watching UFC, they're watching WWE. So I guess give the people a WWE finish, not so much as a UFC finish, but UFC finishes are fine because it was Ronda Rousey. But it was very weird. And the more crossover they do, the more weirdness like this you're going to end up having, because Jimmy Smith was initially an MMA play-by-play guy. So he's going to come at it with an MMA background. He's a wrestling fan, but he's going to put wrestling in its proper perspective. And it's the same thing that we had with Ronda Rousey, and the same thing with anybody else that get involved with pro wrestling who comes from UFC or whatever. They're going to talk about how much they like it, but it's not real. The whole Matt Riddle, I can beat up so-and-so for real crap. It's this sort of puffery that comes from their, coming from a quote legitimate background that, is kind of laughable, but it's what wrestling did to itself by turning itself into mostly entertainment and moving away, a long way from sports. So, while we can collectively shit on Jimmy Smith, and that would be the right thing to do because he is a dumbass for even making that comment, it was not wrong, and it's the fault of the wrestlers for, not taking boxing classes or something like that, so that people can think that they are somewhat legitimate. And then when you do have somebody who legitimately knows some mixed martial arts, it's usually a surprise, like Nikita Lyons. And then it doesn't come across well in the pro wrestling space because people don't really care about your karate or your jujitsu and all that kind of shit. If you can't make it look good in the wrestling business, they don't care if you're a legitimate shooter. And ultimately, I agree with that. Like if you want to do jujitsu and all that kind of shit, and it looked like trash, take that shit to Bellator or something like that. I don't want to see trash MMA. If you can get your MMA and it looks good and it's entertaining and it pops the crowd and stuff like that, then yeah, bring it to WWE. But if it looks like shit, keep it where it needs to be, because jujitsu and all that kind of stuff, it has a purpose, and the purpose is to legitimately hurt somebody, and that's not what they do in wrestling. So if your shit doesn't look good, I don't care if it's legitimate or not, get it out of here. So just the most interesting note that took place over the weekend, outside of everybody flipping their lid about Bray Wyatt. Okay, let's go into Monday Night Raw. The DX stuff did not last as long as I thought it would. They got the opening and the close of the show with one segment in the middle. They got the open to the show as the old guys. They did some dick jokes, some cock jokes. Triple H played the role of Vince McMahon, which was legitimately funny. He even had the glasses on the nose that Vince does with the weird colored suit, the blue suit. I don't think anybody noticed it, but maybe some people noticed it. That's what Triple H was doing in the early part, as he was kind of telling people that they can't say stuff, and then Shawn was, cussing, and Road Dogg yelled penis. Like, he had Tourette's. And I didn't even notice he had a tattoo on the back of his head. Like, dude, you're like 90 years old. Why do you have a tattoo on the back of your head? Vince Russo was very, very angry about DX, the DX reunion. He doesn't get it. I will talk about it a little bit more, but it's clearly he just didn't get what's going on here. But at the end of the show, they stood in the middle of the ring. Well, in the middle of the show, Road Dogg made a match between Dexter Lumis and The Miz. Next week, with some real stakes to it. If Dexter Lumis wins, he gets a job in WWE. If The Miz wins, Dexter Lumis is banished. So that has some real weight to it, even though the question would be, if Dexter Lumis doesn't work there, how is he popping up every week? But whatever. At the end of the show, kind of given the main event spot, DX did their big reunion in the ring. They came to the ring and on the Jeep. Sean Waltman called China the secret ingredient to DX and gave her a shout out. Road Dogg did the New Age Outlaw skit. And the crowd did the badass Billy Gunn part because, of course, he's not there. Corey Graves then said that the other guy's doing something with office equipment. They did a little weed joke where they talked about it smelling funny in the building. And Triple H said it smells funny in here, and X-Pac said it smells good in here. To which he said, "Is that you or is that them?" And then X-Pac kind of was like, "I guess that's them." So then they talked about being old, and Shawn Michaels said that they're still doing this in another 25 years, put them out of their misery. They thanked everybody, told everybody to suck it, and then we left. That was it. They didn't beat up anybody. They didn't get beat up by anybody. For a lot of people, it was a waste. For some people, it was fine. I thought it was okay. Yes, I definitely wanted them to interact more, but most of these guys can't take bumps. Shawn is very, very old. Road Dogg is old. Waltman can still work, but he's not going to take bumps for nothing, and Triple H, man, goddamn, if he takes a bump, who knows what that thing in his chest might do. So no, I'm kind of okay with them not getting beat up by anybody. And because they weren't going to get into any physical contact with anybody, they limited their exposure, which is good. They gave people the DX reunion. They got to do the chant. They got to buy special DX merchandise, everything. That was all good. The funny thing to me is how deafening the daddy ass chants were in the building. I just couldn't believe there were so many. Wait a minute, there were none. I was told that there was going to be daddy ass chants all up and through this joint because he wasn't going to be there. Didn't happen. And this is Brooklyn, so this is a smart crowd. This is a New York crowd, and literally AEW was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and they were not stunting Billy Gunn. Once again, we got guys like Alvarez who are overstating how over AEW and whatever it is they're doing. Yes, the Acclaimed are super over in AEW. I'm glad that they're super over. Scissoring and the big segment they did, the National Scissoring Day stuff, was great, but it didn't translate. The WWE audience does not give a damn, and they didn't think about Billy Gunn. I didn't even hear a smattering of Billy Gunn chants. I didn't hear anything about Billy Gunn. Once DX was out there, it was all about doing the shtick, which is what they did, and that was it. I don't know if anybody was disappointed. So, very weird. But Vince Russo, he was upset because in his formulation, and he's totally not wrong, DX is anti-authority. And how can you do a DX thing where DX is anti-authority, but now Triple H is a member of the corporate, is in the corporate space, and it makes no sense for them to do a DX reunion because it can't be real DX, because real DX was rebellious, and it's not, people that was in the company and all that kind of stuff. And he's not entirely wrong, but he's still kind of wrong, and he doesn't really get the switch that DX did over the years. The idea that DX was, sort of these rebels who, got to have your finger on the censorship button. That's what it was in like 96, well, 97 and early part of 98. That's what it was. DX went corporate long before, before Russo left. When they started doing, the DX Army and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't really rebellious anymore. Not against the company or the network and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't really even against that anymore. It was the company and the network are going with it at that point. And then when they did the Shawn and Triple H reunion in 06, it was completely corporate at that point. It was all about selling gimmicks, t-shirts, glow sticks, that kind of stuff. It wasn't about, sex and, violence and being cool anymore and boobs and shit like that. It wasn't about none of that stuff anymore. So it's like Vince Russo, apparently the guy who supposedly works as a consultant for USA Network, but doesn't know the names of so many wrestlers and doesn't really understand what's going on. How could that be? Like, how an effective consultant was he that he doesn't really watch the product, doesn't remember the name of any of the talent, doesn't follow character arcs, storylines, or anything like that. But he's a consultant for the USA Network. Okie dokie. Anyway, this is 16 years ago when they did the last reunion. Well, not the last reunion, but the on-screen storyline with Triple H and Shawn Michaels being friends. They were fighting against Vince McMahon, which was, somewhat a rebellious thing because Vince still represented the company and everything. And in that respect, it is a lot different now because Triple H is in the seat of authority. And which made sense how they lambasted it early, and by having Triple H be the guy behind the desk with the glasses on his nose and him saying, like, we can't do this. Now, it would have been fun if we'd have kept that going, where Triple H basically following him around, being a spoil sport, being Vince until he gets talked into taking the suit off and all that kind of stuff. That would have been fun. And they kind of did that in the early segment where, they were, the other three guys are talking about Cox, and Shawn saying, you better get excited about it right fucking now, that was kind of fun. But, a running story of Triple H kind of peeling off the suit and, leading to the crescendo of him telling everybody to suck it at the end would have been fun. But I didn't hate it. It's just kind of, it was a regular Raw with this stuff on it. And that's fine for me. I didn't expect them to take any bumps. I think I may have said they may get confronted by somebody or something like that, but they didn't. So, okay. That's all right, I guess. What do you guys think? I don't really, I'm a big fan of DX. I know that a lot of people hate DX. I don't know why. It was fun when I was a kid. I know that some people who grew up on it in the 06 era, they kind of burned it out. And then they kind of make DX reunions every couple of years. It's not often enough that, people get sick of it, but it's fairly recently that they did Raw 25. But, as long as they bring out DX when it's appropriate, I'm cool with it. Like the NWO, when appropriate, I'm cool with it. I don't know why today had to be a DX reunion. I don't know, did DX form in October of 1997? I'm not sure. I was there and I'm not sure. But whatever. We started the show with a real faction, the Bloodline, after DX did their cool open. Roman Reigns talked about the loudest being the weakest, and to be the weakest in the Bloodline is to be a fool. Then asked Jey Uso if he's a fool. And Jey Uso was like, what? Then Sami Zayn interrupted, which was, the crowd was like, what? Sami Zayn just cutting off Roman Reigns. And then Sami Zayn said, well, Roman did say that the Usos are his responsibility. So since, they're questioning Jey Uso, he decided to step in and he wants to handle it. And so Roman said, okay, go for it. So then Sami Zayn runs down how everyone in the Bloodline is cool. And him and Roman were having a long conversation, spitballing the long-term future of the Bloodline. And Jay's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And that Jimmy is cool. How could you not love Jimmy? Look at that smile. Solo Sikoa is cool. Look at him. He's tough. He's cool. The only one's not being very cool is Jay. And Jay's his behavior lately hasn't been very oozy, whatever that means. And then he said they need Jay to be cool, just like everybody else. Could you please be cool? And so Jay gets the microphone and is like, bruh, is this real, bruh? He was mad. He was like, what is this? This Sami Zayn business, he's over it. Oddly, Matt Riddle came out there. He wanted a title match against Roman Reigns, but they remembered that he can't get a title shot against Roman Reigns because he lost to him before. Roman told him to get to the back of the line and stay there. And then he said, well, maybe somebody else in the bloodline would like to step up and have a match with me. Then they got into an argument about the word yeet, which is silly, but it's classic WWE silliness, where Sami Zayn says yeet is a bloodline word and Matt Riddle can't say it, to which Matt Riddle, of course, continued to say yeet. And they got into a shouting match about it. And then Sami Zayn got instigated by Jey Uso, who said, look, Matt Riddle is disrespecting the bloodline. Surely Sami Zayn is not going to let this happen. And Sami Zayn, felt under the pressure, so he agreed to have this match with Matt Riddle. Okay, cool. That was fine. Later in the show, Jey Uso is trying to talk to Roman Reigns, but Roman says he's going out on the town with the wise man. They're going to Manhattan to do stuff, eat food and stuff. And Jay's thinking he's about to go too. And then, Roman's like, no, where Sammy goes, you go. And he wanted to make sure his honorary Uso won tonight. And so Jay was like, okay, sure. If you say so, all right. Then he tries to take Solo. And he's like, no, Solo was with me. So Solo gets in the car. And it's Jay standing outside the car, just looking absolutely salty. He's incredibly salty. Jay has been excellent. Like over the last, year, Jay has been tremendous. So this brings us to the main event, which probably shouldn't have been the main event, but it was. I was very tired by this point. I was kind of sleepy. Sami Zayn versus Matt Riddle. Jey Uso was a disaster in this match. He was all in the way. Caused Sami Zayn to lose. So now there's going to have to be some kind of repercussions because Sami Zayn lost. And it was Jey Uso's fault. Jey Uso distracted Sami Zayn, got all in the way. It was awful. So this ought to be a fun little thing for them to play up on SmackDown. Sami Zayn losing to Matt Riddle. But did it really do anything for Riddle? Not really. Not really. It was a match with no stakes. So it was what it was. It was just a match to make Sami Zayn look bad in front of the rest of the bloodline. But it's also going to get blamed on the Usos. So we already know that. So I'm guessing that's going to be the recurring theme, is every time Sami Zayn loses, it's going to be the Usos' fault because they should have been there to protect him, to look after him and everything. But I'm wondering if he's going to throw them under the bus by saying, you guys should have looked after me. Or is it going to be a, hey, it's not their fault. It's my thing. It's my problem or whatever. And that's what it seemed like they were going with Sami Zayn at first. Like they were going to go with Sami Zayn is trying to be friends with the Usos, or specifically with Jay, by, taking responsibility and kind of taking some of the heat off Jay. But I don't know if they're still going in that direction. All right, so then they had 2 straight matches. Austin Theory loses to Johnny Gargano. Everybody's starting to notice how Austin Theory is losing every single fucking week now. He's won 1 match in 3 months, I think. And it was like 1 televised match in 3 months. Everybody's arguing about whether Triple H hates this fucking kid or loves him or whatever the case may be. I think the proof is in the pudding. He's losing more than most people, and you're not doing him any favors by doing this, There's no reverse psychology about, oh, he's trying to make him earn it. I'm like, this ain't the way to do it, you know. And then I'm going to save that rant later. I'm going to save that rant for later. But ultimately, this is not helping Austin Theory. You know, it's not helping him to be losing every week on TV. You know, because the people, the audience, you know, the heat was in how fast he was getting pushed. That was the heat. The heat was that Vince McMahon was pushing him super fast, and he was delivering. He had pressure on him, and Austin Theory was under pressure to deliver every single time. So it wasn't like he was fast tracked to this spot. It was Vince McMahon would have expectations for him. Sometimes he'd fail. Sometimes he'd succeed. Sometimes he would lose the match, like he would lost to Finn Balor, but he would get, you know, he would lose the battle, win the war, kind of. And so it was kind of an ebb and flow. He lost some, he won more than he lost, that kind of thing. And now he's just losing. And it's like they haven't done anything to his character to change him one single bit. He's just coming out with the briefcase every week, fucking losing. And the argument is, well, if you build him up super strong and then he loses to Roman, then that kills his character. I'm like, okay, you know, then he changes his character. He's 25. At this point, or 25, 26, or whatever he is. At this point, if you turn the fucking kid into a jobber, nobody's going to care. You know, and then you get the same reaction, except for you don't get the guy actually being built up first. Now he's losing, and he still has the briefcase. I would rather him beat 90% of the roster and lose to Roman Reigns, which is something that happens to everybody. You know, Drew McIntyre beat most people and then he lost to Roman Reigns, you know, but it doesn't really hurt you that much to get to, you know, very, very close and then fall short, as opposed to guy can't beat fucking Johnny Gargano, you know, like losing clean every week too. It's not like he's losing by chicanery or, you know, he's getting rolled up or, you know, whatever. He's losing clean every single week. It just makes no sense. I don't understand what Triple H is doing. I think the proof is in the pudding. He does not like Austin Theory. He prefers a guy like Johnny Gargano, and he's going to book it that way. You know, and for anybody who thinks, oh, he was booking him strong in NXT, no, he did not. He was shit in NXT too. And then he was shoved into the way after, you know, Vince brought him up the first time. There was that little controversy. He got sent back down, and he was basically treated like the ditzy high school quarterback of the way. And, you know, this is a mistake because this guy has infinitely more charisma and infinitely more potential than a lot of the guys he's doing jobs for. If he's going to do jobs for people, it should be people who are already established. Johnny Gargano is not even really getting good reactions. The Triple H Kool-Aid is starting to poison people's brains. Whatever. Moving on. I'm just tired of having that argument every week. All right, moving on. Rey Mysterio defeated Chad Gable. Cold match. It was fairly short. Rhea and Dominic appeared in the middle of the match. Afterwards, after Rey Mysterio won, they surrounded Rey, with Dominic daring Rey to smack him, to attack him, to hit him. Rey instead put his arms behind his back as Dominic punched him and smacked him and pushed him around. Rhea even held him in place for a 619, but Rey did indeed fight back against Damian Priest and Finn Balor before Dominic cut him off. Rey just absolutely refused to fight Dominic. They're really telling a great story here. Some people are really starting to think that Rey is looking like a pushover, but I think this is a really good story. You know, it's similar to the Undertaker and Kane thing. Yes, Undertaker eventually reached a breaking point, but that was his brother. This is his son, you know, and he realized that his son is being manipulated and his son is being taken advantage of. So him being a little bit more giving and a little bit more caring and, you know, not wanting to give his son a reason to hate him. You know, it's interesting, but they beat down Rey, of course, because it's time for his weekly beatdown. At least Rey is getting beat down with a purpose. Then we get the Judgment Day. They're cutting over, they cut a promo. Damian Priest put over Finn Balor as handling his business. Finn Balor goes in the microphone and says that the cold truth is that he ended Edge's return party. He pissed on everybody's parade because he's too legit to quit. I'm too legit to quit. Then he said he's running out of mercy for Uncle Allen because he's the last piece of business he has to handle. Dominic got on the microphone during this thing. Crazy heat. I mean, crazy heat. The hatred that people have for Dominic Mysterio is absolutely hilarious. They're starting to get everybody reacting to Dominic because once Dominic tries to talk and he gets booed over him, everybody decides they're going to grab the microphone and say, "Shut up! Let the man speak." And not letting Dominic get a single word in. So AJ Styles gets in the ring, says that Finn Balor has been right all this time, that the answer has been right in front of his face. He's been alone for too long, and at this point, he needs friends, he needs family. And then Finn Balor's like, "Absolutely, yes indeed." And they ended up hugging after AJ Styles kneeled to him to kind of tease that he was going to enjoy the Judgment Day. He then hugged Finn Balor, and Finn Balor had the alcoholic eyes. I don't know what's up with that, the redness around his eyes. He just got them Irish alcoholic eyes. And like he doesn't get enough sleep, or like he had whiskey, like literally 2 minutes before this. And he says into the microphone, "I wasn't talking about you." And then the Good Brothers showed up. Gallows and Anderson, they appeared, and I think Dominic cursed. Let's say, I'm like, this is a big fucking mistake or something like that, and then the fight started. So Dominic said something that set off AJ Styles, and they just started throwing hands, and it became a giant brawl. And Rhea, to her credit, she took a sideline on this one. Okay. I saw it coming. I think most people did, but the Good Brothers, oh, they're back. Fuck. I mean, look, okay. Let's do it. I'm gonna take my personal opinion out of it for a minute or two. This is a good storytelling. AJ Styles doesn't want to join the Judgment Day. He doesn't want anything to do with Judgment Day. He can't trust Rey Mysterio because Rey Mysterio won't fight Dominic. And then there's nobody else. Edge has quit. Edge is gone. There is nobody else. So Edge, being gone and Rey being untrustworthy, it makes sense that he will look to his real friends. Gallows and Anderson. Okay. In storyline, it makes perfect sense. They isolated AJ Styles. He's by himself. He doesn't want to fight Judgment Day alone. Okay. The OC is back together. However you feel about that, you feel about that. However I feel about that is I cannot believe they hired these fucking guys again. I cannot believe Doc Gallows is getting a WWE check again. Who in the history of the business has been fired from WWE more times than Doc Gallows? How many people have been fired from WWE more than Doc Gallows? Marty Jannetty, maybe? Bruce Pritchard, maybe? I can't think of anybody else this guy's been fired 3 times already. All right? This is his 4th run in WWE, or 5th, one of the two. The Good Brothers and their childish, sophomoric humor, I hate them. I cannot stand the Bland brothers. The Bald brothers, they suck. They're garbage. But I also understand this. Triple H talked these guys into staying when they wanted to go to AEW. And their contract had come out. Triple H talked them into staying. And it was Vince who fired them. So maybe Triple H felt, I owe them one. They're leaving Impact. I talked them into staying the first time, got them big contracts, got them some money. And then Vince came in and was like, fuck these guys. And then, Vince and Paul Heyman, let's put it like that. Because Paul Heyman was apparently the one who put him on the chopping block because he didn't want anything to do with them. And then Vince just kind of like didn't care enough to stop it. And remember that pissed off AJ Styles for a little while. He was very mad at Paul Heyman. So if this is a way to appease AJ Styles and the Good Brothers are owed one by Triple H, I'll say it's good business from that respect. Because part of being a good executive is having a good rapport with the talent. And if you have a good rapport with the talent and good rapport with the audience, people will forgive certain things. And Triple H had a certain rapport with certain talent before they were fired by Vince. Vince didn't have that rapport with them, didn't really care about them or anything like that. Triple H is bringing in people that he had a good rapport with. He had a good rapport with the Good Brothers. And he was able to, talk them into sticking around a little bit longer than they wanted to. And then they summarily got fired. But they didn't dig the company out too badly. Well, Carl Anderson kind of did when he left. But they were very professional about, they wanted to blow the lid off of what happened in Saudi Arabia, got people all jazzed up, and then nothing happened. So that was kind of the extent of it. Was Carl Anderson was pretty mad about the lie that, WWE was going to be there for them and their families and everything. And that was Triple H making a promise that he couldn't keep because he wasn't in control. Vince was. But now he can. So he's making good on it. All right. Sure. From a man's man perspective, I agree with that. I give it a thumbs up. I probably would do the same thing. And then we know that this is AJ Styles' last mainstream contract, or his last running contract, because he said so. So if he wants to have one final run, it's with his boys. Okay, sure. I'm okay with that because it makes AJ Styles happy. We get AJ Styles on television, which is good for me as a wrestling fan. But I don't like the Good Brothers. And I'm just going to be upfront. I may brutalize the Good Brothers. Man, they could save a baby from a burning building. I'm probably going to say they suck. I'm probably going to criticize how it happened. But, it is what it is. At least I respect that Triple H is trying to be a man of his word when it comes to the Good Brothers. But they fucking suck. Now, on another piece of business when it comes to the Good Brothers, apparently Carl Anderson is still the New Japan Pro Wrestling open weight champion or whatever the fuck. They got 100 fucking belts. They just introduced another new belt, the New Japan Television Championship. I'm like, God, how many fucking belts do they have? They gotta have like 30 belts at this point. Like New Japan is such a stale, boring product that they have to have multiple belts because they keep giving titles to fucking Okada. So we got to, every time Okada wins another belt, wins the world title again, we got to create a new belt because there's guys who aren't going to be champions anymore. So they have a TV belt now. There's just 400 belts in New Japan. It's ridiculous. But apparently, Carl Anderson is the never open weight belt, which is one of the most useless fucking belts in New Japan. At least the TV belt is going to be interesting because it's going to have a 15-minute time limit for all of the matches. And the time limit actually makes things interesting. But that never open weight belt makes no sense. I don't even understand why it exists. Why does the never belts exist anyway? I don't know. It sucks. But he's still the champion. And apparently he's scheduled to wrestle Hikuleo on November the 5th. And so that leads people to a lot of chitter-chatter going around because people are starting to question whether WWE will allow Carl Anderson to complete that match. But it's a new era. Triple H is taking over now, not Vince. It's entirely possible that Triple H is going to make a deal that guys can work New Japan dates. It's entirely possible. I can see that happening, especially for the Good Brothers, because that's really important to them is doing their New Japan stuff. Maybe there's going to be certain guys, if they're of a certain level and Triple H likes them enough that he'll let them work New Japan dates or limited New Japan dates. That would be a major change. The New Japan guys were, of course, responding to this. New Japan World, their actual Twitter account, sort of replied to the Good Brothers popping up on Raw. So either this is about to be a very short run, or they may have Carl Anderson just drop the belt. Because I know that Karrion Kross made his appearance on SmackDown before he was done with his indie dates. I think he did work some of them. Other ones were canceled. But when he was brought in, he still had indie dates to do. That's why he didn't wrestle for a long time. So maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe they'll have Carl Anderson complete some of the dates that are still remaining on his New Japan schedule. And he'll just drop the belt to Hikuleo or whatever and then go to WWE and you won't have to deal with this situation anymore. Or it's going to be a new era and Triple H is just going to allow guys to work New Japan, which is wild. Why you would start with the Good Brothers, I have no idea, but that's wild. And if WWE is going to have a relationship with New Japan, well, interestingly enough, over the weekend, Tony Khan announced that AEW is going to be doing a deal with Noah. And so I was kind of like, that's a New Japan competitor, isn't it? Now, I'm not sure who owns Noah. Somebody told me that Noah and New Japan are owned by the same company. I'm not sure. I know in the United States that probably wouldn't be able to happen because we have, monopoly laws. And I think Noah is technically the second biggest wrestling company in Japan. I think it's bigger than All Japan. I'm not sure how that works nowadays because I know they toddle back and forth. But they're going to have some kind of working relationship between Noah and AEW. Whether that affects AEW's business with New Japan or not, I don't know. But there was some talk about the New Japan WWE stuff when Vince was there. There was some discussions about that. As we know, Tony Khan was making fun of Nick Khan and saying, "Oh yeah, I got the New Japan deal. It took not too long or whatever." But Vince has always kind of been no on that kind of stuff. Even though he did allow it in the '80s because he was trying to build the brand. So Hulk Hogan being a big star in Japan helped WWF. It didn't really help them in the 90s to do a lot of cross promotion, even though they kind of did it with the USWA or Smoky Mountain or something like that. If somebody worked for WWF and they had their own promotion, Vince was sending talent. He did it with Paul Heyman and ECW, but he didn't really do too much when it comes to outside promotion. I think AAA was like the major one that he worked with, and I was in 97 for a short amount of time when they had all those Lucha Libre guys in the Royal Rumble. So Vince has kind of always been sour on doing these kind of relationships, even though he was forced to do them in the 80s. He did them a lot more. And when he's more successful, he chooses not to do the crossover stuff. So maybe Triple H's next thing is he's going to allow guys to do New Japan dates. Which, if it keeps these fucking guys off my TV, I'm cool with it. I don't care. And ironically, John Moxley signs an extensive contract with AEW that precludes him from doing indie dates, which means he had to drop the GCW title to Nick Gage. He was probably going to lose anyway. But now he can't do GCW anymore. So it's like they're reversing course. WWE is going to allow fucking Carl Anderson to work in New Japan. While Moxley can still work New Japan, I'm guessing if they still have a working relationship with AEW. But Moxley can't work independence anymore. Whoop-de-doo. But I think it's smart, not to detour into AEW too much, but it's smart for Tony Khan to not have, John Moxley out there doing blood matches with these idiots. It's just dumb. If he's going to be your top guy, you don't let him go with the GCW and get hit in the head with light poles and shit like that. It's just stupid. All right, let's finally get back to WWE. Bayley was upset that she lost in the ladder match, but they let Dakota Kai do the talking here. She talked about being at rock bottom last year, and Bayley was the only one to come out and help her, and she would do anything to help Bayley, and that when Bayley gets her rematch, they're going to punish Bianca Belair. Io spoke in Japanese. I thought and Bayley kind of translated it, and from the translation, I thought they were saying that Io was going to kick Candice LeRae's ass, but what they meant was Bayley is going to kick Candice LeRae's ass. So the match was Candice LeRae versus Bayley, and Candice LeRae actually won the match. Interesting. Triple H loves him some Candice LeRae. Whenever they do that spot where Candice LeRae is firing up and she's throwing punches in the corner, it always looks like a little girl just flailing her arms. It doesn't look like somebody throwing real punches. It just looks like a little girl throwing her arms around. This is going to end up being a big match in the future, I think, for Triple H, because he loves both of these chicks. This is like a regular TV match. Candice LeRae actually countered the Rose Plant into a pinfall. So she won clean, then got jumped by Damage Control. Bianca Belair tried to save her. She got jumped too. So it's clear that Candice LeRae is going to end up being a member of Team Bianca for the War Games, because they're still building for the War Games. All right. Very interesting. I'm surprised, but not surprised that Candice LeRae beat Bayley. I was actually very surprised that they even booked this match, because it seemed like, Triple H wouldn't job out Candice LeRae like this, and he loves him some Bayley. So what's going to happen here is probably disqualification. Nope. He actually put Candice LeRae over clean, and then had Bayley do the job. I'm like, wow. So, all right. Damage control is not looking good. At the same time, though, I will say this: Mia Yim, her contract expired when it comes to Impact. Impact just cannot keep talent at all. I'm guessing she's probably going to get put in Damage Control. That's my guess. I figured it would happen on this show, because they've been talking about it all weekend, that she just worked her last dates when it comes to Impact. So I guess, I don't know if Bound for Glory was her last date, or if she worked the tapings and then that was it. Because apparently like 8 people left Impact after Bound for Glory. You know, after they had those tapings after Bound for Glory, like 7 or 8 people left. Or are now free agents, and Mia Yim is one of them. I know Triple H probably likes him some Mia Yim, even though I don't think Mia Yim is that great. You know, she's not awful, I guess. She's just kind of boring. I could see him throwing her in Damage Control. I could see him doing that. So when it comes to adding more members to Damage Control, I could see Mia Yim being one of them. Because they're going to need people for the War Games match. So I could see them doing that. So get ready. Unless you're a fan of Mia Yim, she's probably going to get thrown on the War Games team. I'm okay with it, I guess. WWE needs more women. They need more talented women. And okay, if we got to suffer through Mia Yim and Candice LeRae, sure. But just stop jobbing out Raquel Rodriguez and, you know, women who have, like Bianca, leave them alone. If you want to job out Aaliyah or something like that, okay. I'm not thrilled about the Lacey Evans stuff, but whatever. You know, but I'm okay with it. So I'm guessing that Mia Yim will probably return to WWE at some point. And they're making sure that everybody knows that she's a free agent, because, you know, she was a Triple H project in NXT. So, all right. So the Miz and Maurice, they are out here. Miz is about to have a birthday party. But Miz doesn't think it's smart to have a birthday party, and Maurice thinks that she says she's been working on this for months, and then she gave Miz a bat for his birthday. We found out that it's a bat from Jose Ramirez. I don't understand baseball, so this kind of went over my head. Either way, they did the in-ring birthday party, where Maurice also got Miz a set of giant balls to go with his giant bat, which of course is big dick and balls, right? It took a while for the fans to actually respond to the giant balls with the Miz's face on them. I was like, they're very slow in New York. Like, as soon as I saw the giant balls, I got it, right? So then they started chanting tiny balls at the Miz. Dexter Lumis his head was inside of a box, rather. Scared the Miz, attacked Miz. Miz ended up running away, and he left Maurice behind. And then Dexter Lumis grabbed a knife. People chanted for him to cut the cake, so he did cut the cake and he ate it. He also poked the Miz's giant balls with a knife. This is going to lead to their match next week. This was the worst Miz and Maurice segment in a long time. It was dead. It felt rushed. You know, Vince always gave Miz an opportunity to talk and to get over and to, you know, my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut. And, you know, to do more of that stuff. And that usually gets people into what the Miz is doing. And because the Miz has in a segment that flopped, that's very rare. You know, the Miz segments usually are pretty good. But this was the worst Miz segment they've had in a long time. And it felt like they were just kind of going through the motions here. And plus, everybody knew Dexter Lumis was going to pop up at some point. And then also, people are starting to lose interest in this whole Dexter Lumis thing because there's no reason for it. But they will have a match, and the match is going to have stakes to it. So maybe it'll be the end next week. Hopefully. Hopefully, my God, hopefully. Omos defeated Two Job Guys. The Two Job Guys got a bit of a pep talk from DX earlier in the night. It didn't do him any good. They still got beat. They played the entirety of Bray Wyatt's return from Extreme Rules. Why would they do that? I don't understand that. Like, why did they do that? They played the entire thing on TV. I was like, oh, okay. In addition to that, there was a Bray Wyatt video where he said that he used to live in a prison inside of his own head, believing it was the only place he could be free. But he learned that to revel in what you are. Revel in what you are. And so a lot of people are trying to figure out, the puzzle of the Bray Wyatt promo. And there was also a QR code which gave the date for SmackDown. So apparently he's going to be on SmackDown too. Hold on. Used to live in a prison inside of his own mind. I'm guessing that's the Firefly Funhouse. Believing it was the only place he could be free. I'm guessing that's what he means by the Firefly Funhouse. Is the place where he felt like he could be himself. And, he was still playing a character kind of. But it was sort of, again, the sacred space within his own mind where he had all of his friends, Huskus the Pig Boy, Rambling Rabbit, and Abby the Witch, and all that kind of stuff. Is that, he believed he could be free inside of the Firefly Funhouse. But, he has to revel in what he is. And remember, when they started the Firefly Funhouse, he promised that he would never ever be the bad man ever again, which means the Bray Wyatt with the butcher thing and the hat and everything. He promised to never be that guy again. At the very beginning of the Firefly Funhouse, he kind of promised he would never ever be that guy again. But he's that guy again now, right? So apparently, he's reveling in what he is. He's accepting of what he is now. So, he's integrated his shadow, as we said on the live stream. So he doesn't need the Fiend anymore. So I guess there's going to be Fiend elements to this new Bray Wyatt character. Interesting. We'll see. Then we got Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins. Now, this was interesting. So Lashley comes out there. He says he's going to be a fighting champion. And said, as a fighting champion, he has already beaten some of the top names. He's beaten Roman Reigns. He's beaten Brock Lesnar. He's beaten all of these different guys. And he's going to add Seth Rollins to the list. I whispered to myself, he's already beaten Seth Rollins. Are we supposed to forget that? Then Brock Lesnar, music thunders through the arena. Everybody's very excited to see Brock. Brock comes in there. He stares down Bobby. Bobby lifts the U.S. title in his face. Then he catches an F5. Then he takes one of those ugly German suplexes to his shoulder. I don't know why Bobby is doing that. Just take the German suplex, dog. And then the crowd is chanting one more time. Then he gets another F5. Then he gets put in a double wrist lock. And so Brock's just beating the tar out of Lashley. Took him completely by surprise, beat the shit out of him. So Seth Rollins runs down to the ring, Money in the Bank style, and demands that the match starts now. Now, they've been selling that Rollins, of course, injured his ribs on the big senton spot from Riddle at the Fight Pit. Lashley is being carried out after being attacked by Brock Lesnar. Seth Rollins gets on the microphone with his taped ribs and demands that the match begins. Lashley is not listening. So he says, "You're supposed to be a fighter." And Lashley's he's still being helped out. And he said, "You're supposed to be a soldier." And Lashley stops. Then he says, "You're a disgrace to that title. You're a disgrace to your country." So at that point, Lashley comes back. He tries gallantly to fight against Seth Rollins, but ends up falling short. And Seth Rollins is the new United States champion. All of this was very good. This was all very good. I have been saying for a long time that they should have been acknowledging Roman Reigns, acknowledging Lashley's military service. And they finally did it. And he did it in a way where Seth Rollins is the guy who gets to do it, because Seth Rollins is the guy who takes it personal. He's the guy who makes it personal, rather. So he's the guy who kind of dug the knife and Lashley by saying, "Hey, you're supposed to be this big soldier. What's going on? You was in the army, right? You're a tough guy, right? Disgracing your title, you're disgracing your country." That goes Lashley into going in there and fighting gallantly and falling behind. The Brock Lesnar would have been a great surprise if they hadn't spoiled it 2 hours before. The dirt sheet spoiled everything. They spoiled the Good Brothers being there. I was hoping they were going to be wrong on that. They also spoiled Brock Lesnar being there. So whatever. Whatever. The fact that both Brock and Lashley are baby faces kind of nullified the crowd, because there were people who were okay with Lashley getting beat up. There were other people who weren't. So they were just kind of watching and saying to themselves, holy shit, what's going on here? There was also some people who believed, okay, so this match with Seth Rollins is not going to happen, and Lashley is going to end up fighting Brock for the U.S. title. Is that what's going to happen? There's people who believe that. I knew that wasn't going to happen. When I saw that Rollins was coming out there, I was like, okay, Lashley about to lose the belt. Clearly. Clearly he's about to lose the belt, because Brock ain't wrestling the U.S. champion. That ain't happening. All right. Of all the things that Triple H can get done, I don't believe he's going to let that one happen. So, I knew Lashley was going to lose. He looked strong in losing. He continued to gallantly fight, even though he was injured. Seth Rollins wins a championship, his first championship in forever. It's a U.S. title, but it's a championship. How he won it is a story, because, he just lost in the fight pit. He lost clean in the fight pit because there's no other way to lose. And he went from losing that main event match to winning this co-main event match, which some people think is a step down. I think there's a step up for the U.S. title, because Seth Rollins is a highly visible part of the WWE roster, and him being a champion works out. But you have to ask the question of why would you put the mid-card belt on him? Like, I get that you kind of have to give Seth Rollins something, because he has lost so much, that you kind of have to give him something. And treating him like a gatekeeper for like the last 6 months is what they've been doing anyway. Ever since January, actually, ever since he wrestled Roman and didn't win. He won. Well, I guess he won. He won by disqualification. But he's been a gatekeeper, and he went on the Ariel Helwani show and was talking about being a gatekeeper and how he really didn't appreciate it, because he felt like Cody was in his spot. Now he feels like, he's working, guys that he should have been wrestling. He should be in Roman's spots, how he feels. He doesn't like being a gatekeeper. But now he's been given the gatekeeper belt. Now he's been given the gatekeeper championship. It's good for him, I guess, because it's another title. He's a champion. He's highly visible, so it's good for the belt. It increases the visibility of the title, because Seth Rollins gets a lot of TV time. He's also super over, so it works. The downside of this is that this feels like when Ric Flair was a U.S. champion, like 97. A lot of you guys don't remember that. That Ric Flair was a U.S. champion like in the mid-90s. He was wrestling like Eddie Guerrero with like Hog Wild and stuff like that. That's just kind of what this gives. This gives off like when Triple H was the Intercontinental Champion after he won the world title. Like when JBL was the Intercontinental Champion after he won the world title. Like all the Jericho's mid-card title matches after he won the world title. It's like after a certain point, you kind of start getting questions about whether a guy should be a mid-card champion. Like when Randy Orton won the U.S. title. Everybody was like, what? What? Randy Orton is the... Why is he the U.S. champion? And it didn't last very long. So a lot of people probably forgot that even happened. You probably like, when did that happen? It happened in like 2018 or something like that. Or maybe 2019 is one of the two. But it's a rare thing that you get a guy to the level of Seth Rollins and then put the mid-card belt on him. But Triple H has said that he wants to elevate those mid-card belts. And for the Intercontinental title, he's just going to book Gunther better. He did similarly to Lashley, but he kind of took Lashley out of the picture so he can wrestle Brock. I'm guessing Lashley's going to come back for his belt, because then they talked about it later as they did a backstage segment Lashley said he's going to come back for Seth Rollins, but he's going to first make Brock Lesnar pay. So I'm guessing that's going to be the Saudi match. It's going to be Brock, Bob, 2. My Spurs is jingling and jangling. I'm all for it. Hopefully it's better than that Royal Rumble match, which actually wasn't that bad, but I want it to be a little bit more 50-50 this time. The story is sort of there. Bobby Lashley was, bragging about beating Brock Lesnar, and so Brock showed up and was like, okay. Didn't need to say that Bobby was, bragging about beating him, because Bobby literally just bragged about beating him. So, he's got to see if he could do it again. All right, cool. I would definitely need some storyline elements there, because we don't know if Brock's turning heel or not, which it seems like he might have been turning heel in this segment. Brock being there is always going to be a thumbs up for me. I'm a big Brock guy. I'm a huge fan of Brock Lesnar. So I'm a big fan of Bob too, as everybody knows who listens to this channel. I'm not upset about anything that happened here. It's just kind of got some question marks. So now that Seth Rollins is the U.S. champion, he is officially the gatekeeper. Who is he going to feud with? Because he needs to have a feud. And I'm guessing he's just going to be the champ. He's going to wrestle random people, I'm guessing. Do I see Seth Rollins doing the United States Open Challenge? I don't think so. I don't think it fits his character to do the Open Challenge. I think it fits his character mostly to be the guy being chased. So there has to be a chaser. Since Bobby Lashley is going to be going off with Brock for a little while, there needs to be somebody in this spot, a babyface, to chase Seth Rollins. Could it be Riddle? I think that, the Riddle feud should be over because they had the fight pit. There's nothing you can really do beyond that. Even adding a championship to it is kind of just keeping it going, So I'm guessing there's going to be somebody else. Somebody has got to be chasing this United States title and coming after it. Maybe it'll be Johnny Gargano. He's not doing anything else. There's nothing seems to be on the horizon for him. So maybe that's what we'll get at Saudi. It'll be Seth Rollins versus Johnny Gargano in a Triple H jizzes all over himself match, because he loves both of these guys so very much. Maybe. And I wouldn't mind it if it was, as long as Johnny Gargano gets stomped in the head. Then I'm cool with that. So Raw had some really good events. The Judgment Day stuff, I'm really enjoying that. Finn making fun of Edge was fun. The Rey Mysterio stuff, I'm still a big fan of Rey. So anything that makes, that puts some focus on Rey, I'm for. Dominic's still getting tremendous amounts of heat. So whatever they're doing with him is working. The Lashley, Lesnar, Rollins thing, I love it. It was great. The DX stuff, it was okay. The thing I was really kind of sad about was the return of the Good Brothers, even though I did understand that it makes sense in the storyline. And I still think that the Austin Theory stuff sucks. But people are starting to get on Triple H about the lack of time for the women on these shows again. 3 hours of Raw, 1 women's match, and it was 6 minutes or something like that. I saw somebody said. So they're starting to really kind of get on Triple H about, even though the work rate is increasing and there's fewer rematches, there's still a lot of the old Vince McMahon stuff, excessive disqualifications, even though there wasn't excessive disqualifications on this show. They're starting to talk about, there's too many factions in WWE. I don't know if there's too many factions, man. There's just a lot of factions. The problem with the factions in AEW were that the factions didn't make any sense. They were just being thrown together, and then they would dissolve in as much sense as it took for them to be put together. Like, I still don't understand what happened to the Pinnacle. I still don't understand, why that faction was over. Why it's dead now. I don't know. But Raw was a solid show. I was just very tired and kind of teetered and nodded in the main event. But overall, it was a decent show. What did you guys think? Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session where you got an affection for no progression.